Hey everybody, I hope that your 4th of July was fantastic and that the first of this week has been great so far. Wanted to do a quick little screenshot and try to get you caught up on everything that needs to be done. So, we are now on stage 2 of the UBD process. You should have chosen one unit from your yearly plan that you liked and that you'd like to develop more, and that's what we're going to be working with for the rest of this class. Before we start, going over stage 2, I want to do a quick reminder of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So this is UBD. This is what we've done in the past. Many of you have probably seen this picture of an iceberg. The surface looks like this, but underneath there's actually more. And they talk about how with the way kids need to be taught today, we don't need to be jet skiers like we have been, where we just glide over the surface, but we need to be scuba divers. We need to choose a few things within our curriculum and take them very deep with those things, which means we need to stay on the surface level of some things and then choose what's most important to go deep. And that is completely up to you on what you feel is the most important. For stage 2, I want you to think of it like this. I'm here in Cersei, and we've got people, these red dots spread out all over the place. I have a friend in Fayetteville, one in Jonesboro, one in Memphis, and one down here in Texas, in Houston, and in Dallas. Now, obviously, the one that's in Jonesboro and Memphis is closer to the goal, which is this yellow dot. I want you to think of this map as a classroom, except you're going to have possibly 28 dots all over the place. Some right next to you, and some all the way over here in California, way, way, way over. But your goal is to get them all to the same destination by the end of the school year. What this means is that our assessments have to allow us to see where the students are and if they're progressing. Obviously, it's not going to take as much time to get this one here than what it is to get this one all the way down here. So as a teacher, you have to have lots of things ready. What happens when this student reaches the goal? Are they just going to sit here and wait for days and days and days for this student to get caught up? Or are you going to have things planned and ready so that when this student gets to where you want them, you can move them on to deeper thinking, to higher thinking, to more rigorous activities so that they can go even deeper with their knowledge? So stage 2 is all about assessments. How are we going to assess? How are we going to know where they're at? So as you can see here, the 3 stages, we've kind of identified our desired results. That was your big ideas, your central questions. Now it's time to develop what evidence we're going to collect to be sure that they are understanding what it is that you want them to understand. So, again, why are we doing this? Because it's completely foreign to many teachers still today, even though they say they know the UBD. We're so used to looking at our lessons and looking at our activities and then deciding what our goals for our students are. Well, it's easy to find a cute activity that's fun that has no purpose in the classroom. My wife gets on Pinterest all the time. It's a great site, but it can be evil for teachers because you find these activities as a teacher that look so great, but they have nothing to do with your curriculum. And many teachers go, well, I just want my kids to have fun. What I'm saying is fun is completely needed in a classroom, but only as long as it aligns to your goals that you want your students to meet. So if we clarify what our goals are first, then we find activities to fit those goals. Most teachers look for activities first and then they create the goal. And sometimes that goal is completely off track from where they need their students to go. When we think through these assessments up front, it's just going to mean we are aligned so much better and that our desired results are going to happen because we've planned for it to happen that way. Most teachers don't even have a test written up. They teach, 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 and then they'll create a test based on what they taught. which means they can teach anything and they can veer off and teach things that aren't even relevant. But if we create our tests first, then our teaching is going to be much more compact and much more focused. And that's what we're going for with this stage 2 process. So I want you to think about these 3 circles. And I want you to think that all of your standards are going to fit in here. Some of the standards that you have are just worth being familiar with. We don't want to spend that much time on them. They're not that important. Some of your standards are important to know and to be able to do something about. And then finally, a couple of your standards are going to be your enduring understandings. Within this unit, here's 2 or 3 or 1 standard that we are going to know, and we're going to know it well. And more than just know it, we're going to understand it. So if we think of these 3 circles in maybe a little bit different way, let's think of it like this. We've got our traditional quizzes and tests, which have been in our schools forever and will continue to be in our schools. These are our multiple choice, they are our matching, our true false, our essay, our short answer type questions, where we look at our standards that are not as important, and here's how we're going to test it, because it's just important for students to know to the knowledge level. When you get down here to these enduring understandings and a couple of these important to know and do, these are ones that we want to assess in a different way because we need to be sure that they understand, that we have taught these standards to a much deeper level, and we need them to do an authentic, complex task to see if they truly understand. So our goal right now is to focus just on this traditional quiz and test. You should have already been creating your formative assessment chart. And now all I want you to do is look at your standards for your unit and try to develop a summative traditional test that would be a good end of unit test for those. So it might look like something like, let's look at this one. So this is just a traditional test. This was on a social studies unit. You can see this student just made some matching A, B, C, D, E, F, and then created the questions. And I'll upload this for you to see. There's A, B, C, D, E, F again. Then there's some multiple choice. And then down here there's some fill in the blank, and then there's some short answer. So you're just going to need to create a test based on your standards that would be a good traditional test. Okay, here's a upper level science class. This one's a little more in depth. For those of you that are about to teach and have a teaching job lined up, I would suggest going as in depth as you can. So he started with multiple choice, continues down on multiple choice, continues, and then in part 2 is his fill in the blank. He's using the vocabulary that needs to be used. He's really looked at his standards. He understands them. Then he has a Venn diagram. He's got a short answer essay. And he's got a couple on there. I want you to remember that you can't test a standard with one question on a test. That is so unfair to students. When you test a standard, it needs to be done in many ways. But if you are only testing that standard on this traditional test, make sure you have at least two questions to assess one standard. Okay? So if your standard is ask and answer questions about key details in a text, maybe you're going to find a short paragraph that the students are going to read, but then ask 2 questions that hit that standard to see if students know it or not. Don't just ask it one time, and because then all you know is the students either know it or they don't. But we want to try to assess in more than one way. And we want to try to do it in multiple forms so that we can see if they really truly understand. Your task for the rest of this week is to create your formative assessment chart and to create a summative test based on the unit, your one unit that you have chosen. As you can see up here, he has chosen his unit and he put his standards all right here just so he could have those. It's got his essential questions, his big ideas, enduring understandings that the student will be able to, all right above that. And then below that, he goes into his summative test. Okay, I will hook all these up to Canvas, connect them so that you can look at them and use them. And as always, please let me know if you have any questions for me. Thanks, guys.